Over hundreds of years, Mexico has been the place where powerful nations and their corporations come to take advantage and strip the land of its resources and wealth. The Spanish did it with silver, the USA did it in the 20th century with their oil companies, and right now, during the biggest sporting event in history of the world, it's happening again. It's just cleaner and more put together. To understand this a little bit better, let me take you back in time and give you a little example. Around 2006, there was an organized crime group who had a really big problem. They were too good at making money. And I guess when you say it out loud, it doesn't sound like a problem. But for them, it was. Their problem wasn't making the cash. The problem was making it look legitimate. All that cash needed to be cleaned if they wanted to spend it or invest it in legal businesses. So as the tale goes, one of the members had a brilliant idea. They pulled out a measuring tape and measured the width and height of a banker teller window. And then they got these custom boxes that were built exactly the right size to go through that opening. And they started making daily deposits with these cash-filled boxes. Day after day, these deposits added up to something enormous. And they were allegedly doing this for years. The US government eventually confirmed that between 2006 and 2010, at least 881 million in narcotics proceeds moved through the bank that they were doing this in. That bank was HSBC, one of the largest banks in the world. Once the government caught on to what was going on, it was too late. So they did something they thought was necessary. They issued a huge fine of $1.92 billion to HSBC. It was enormous. But here's the thing. To a bank that size, it was peanuts. Even back then, it was only about 5 weeks of profit for them. So it was just a slap on the wrist. After they were fined, not a single executive went to jail. Even though prosecutors had about 175 criminal charges against the bank and its employees. Nothing else happened. Every single one of those charges got put on a shelf and forgotten about. Oh, and here's a fun little fact. The bank's chairman at the time was an ordained priest who had written a book called Good Value, Reflections on Money, Morality, and an Uncertain World. I'm not even making that up. I think it's pretty funny. Now, Mexico has this huge reputation around the world. And it's not a great reputation. Some of it is true, but a lot of it is blown out of proportion. Well, that's my opinion. Over the last 15 years, since HSBC got caught in the scandal, the people cashing in on Mexico's reputation has gotten harder to spot than a box of cash sliding through a teller window. And right now, with the World Cup happening in Mexico, there's an opportunity for some people to make more money than ever before. This is a fact that I found pretty interesting, but I wasn't even a little surprised by it though. Of all 16 World Cup host cities across the US, Canada, and Mexico, the 3 Mexican cities are seeing the highest prices in hotels, like surge prices, in the entire tournament. And it seems like Guadalajara is the leader for the biggest increase. All 3 Mexican cities are among the most volatile markets of any host country in the tournament. Now, the same week that those prices were hitting their peak, the US State Department issued a level 3 travel advisory for the state of Jalisco, where Guadalajara is located. A level 3 warning means reconsider travel. That's the second highest warning that they issue. And this was days before the World Cup games started. Most people would assume that travel warnings hurt hotels. I actually think it does the opposite. A level 3 doesn't stop a fan who's already paid thousands of dollars for a ticket. I mean, have you seen the prices to the games? Most likely a level 3 warning wouldn't stop these people from going to see the match. For some of them, it's a one-in-a-lifetime experience. It's a one-in-a-lifetime chance. What I think these warnings do though is filter out the cautious traveler, the person who is already on the fence, who's looking for the cheaper option. Usually that person stops looking and decides not to go because of the situation. So what hotels in places like Guadalajara end up with is a city full of people willing to pay whatever the listed rate for a night stay is. It won't matter to them. These are the people who have the cheddar, the dollars, the dineros. And those who aren't rich, the ones with the budget in mind, they're scared off by the US state warning. It just gives them another reason not to go. So the way that I see it is that the danger label doesn't hurt hotels. I think it actually might help them. Even after those massive price surges, Mexico's cities are still cheaper than Boston, New York, or Vancouver. So Mexico had the biggest price increase of any country in the tournament, and it's still the cheapest option. This tells you exactly how far down the danger narrative Mexico has been pushed in the first place. And the people collecting the huge profits of all this aren't local Mexican families renting out a spare room. Because if you look at the data, the largest players in Mexico City short-term rental, they're mostly owned by big corporate real estate companies. These are the same companies that convert Mexican neighborhoods into something you might call tourist inventory. That's a light way to put it. My point is that regular Mexicans, they figure out how to survive and make money, even though they face this bad label of reputation all the time. But when the world finally shows up like they did for the World Cup, the locals get pushed aside, and then like vultures, these huge multinational corporations flood in for a few weeks just to collect all the profit, and then they leave. That's my point of this video. And just wait, there's more. There are other companies in this world that only make money because people believe that Mexico is dangerous. It's not a big surprise or a secret, really. But to see how all this works out, we need to go back to February 22nd, 2026. Because for these security companies, this date was the biggest thing to happen for them. That day, the Mexican military, working with US intelligence, killed El Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco New Generation cartel, who had a $15 million bounty on his head. Mexico claimed it as a win, but it didn't come without a little chaos after it all went down. The cartel retaliated by blocking roads and setting vehicles on fire in multiple states, leading to the deaths of 25 National Guard members in the clashes. The US Embassy immediately issued shelter-in-place advisories, and travel to these Mexican states came to a complete stop. And right away, American cable news channels ran this footage of burning cars for days on end. But I can only imagine the phones at the security companies ringing off the hook when this all went down. I'm sure that the entire industry built to sell protection to people scared of going to Mexico saw a massive uptick in those following days. And the World Cup was already their biggest payday opportunity. But El Mencho's death was like the best free marketing campaign these companies could ever ask for. Companies like R&H Global Protection started marketing the World Cup packages for VIP protection, armored transport, bodyguard services, things like that. These campaigns, they're aimed at businesses and individuals attending the games in Mexico. And the thing is that gets me is that they aren't even a Mexican company. Another non-Mexican security group, the Ackerman Group, published a full security assessment advising that the senior executives to be accompanied by protective personnel while in Mexico. Because of course they published it. Mexico deployed nearly 100,000 security personnel to keep the World Cup games safe for everyone. But these private companies are still making a killing. While personal security is needed in some cases, these companies don't make money when Mexico feels safe. They thrive on the danger narrative spread by governments and news channels. The US State Department travel advisories are their top sales tool. And every scary headline drives a potential client straight to these people's door. Now, FIFA committed $625 million in security funding for the host cities. Much of it is flowing through private contractors. Think about that. Some of this money exists because of this dangerous Mexico narrative. But then think about this too. The same government that helped trigger the chaos was also issuing the travel warnings. Isn't that crazy? For this to work for these companies, the danger doesn't need to be 100% real. It just needs to feel real. And the people selling protection have no financial interest in telling you that 99% of Mexico is completely safe for you to visit. Now, things do happen, but they do also happen anywhere in the world, especially if a global event like the World Cup is going on there. I mean, I've witnessed some crazy things growing up in Canada when the World Cup wasn't going on. And people that haven't spent much time in Canada think that it's completely safe there. And I can disagree on that too. Things do happen, like anywhere else. The 2026 World Cup is labeled as the most technologically surveilled sporting event ever staged in history. That's not my opinion. It's how the people running the security operations describes it themselves. Behind every piece of technology, there are huge companies with massive contracts in their hand. Take, for instance, Boston Dynamics. Their four-legged spot robots are working at venues. And what they do is scan for suspicious packages and monitor the crowds in real time. Then there's Fortum Technologies, which has secured a multi-million-dollar contract with the Department of Homeland Security in the USA. Their drone hunter system is an autonomous interceptor that chases unauthorized drones and captures them with nets. Ondas Holdings has also secured multiple government contracts to cover airspace security across most venues at all three host countries. Lenovo is building digital twins of stadiums. This is like a 3D model fed by thousands of cameras to track movements of people. But the list goes on and on and on. The total security spend for this World Cup comes in at $875 million. That's a big price tag for keeping an event safe across three countries. And these things need to be safe. These events need to be safe. I know this. It's just justified by the argument that it's a dangerous event in a dangerous region, especially in Mexico. So how I see it is that Mexican people get to wear this label of dangerous across their chests, instead of the national flag like the rest of the fans who show up to watch the games. I don't think it's fair. And all while the technology companies are laughing to the bank and cashing their fat checks because of all of this. Now Mexico is running its own version of this operation. Nearly 100,000 security personnel deployed across Mexico City, Guadalajara, and Monterrey. There's military, National Guard, police officers, and private contractors. They have robot dogs, AI surveillance, and counter-drone systems covering every Mexican venue. All of it is built to manage their threat levels, largely defined by American media and US government travel advisories. And who do you think provides these counter-drone technologies for Mexican venues? Centrix, a non-Mexican company based out of the USA. Andrew Giuliani, head of Trump's World Cup Security Task Force, describes this scale of this event as 78 Super Bowls over 39 days. Basically, he's saying that's what the level of spending is needed to get the job done. Just so you know, the amount spent for the security at the last Super Bowl was estimated at $6.3 million. And he's saying that you need to multiply that by 78 matches. That's $491 million just for security. That's a ton of money for 5 weeks. And here's the thing about the technology. All of it doesn't just disappear after the winning country of the tournament raises the trophy. A lot of the time that infrastructure and that technology stays. It stays in place. And then contracts renew because those companies that are making money don't want it to stop. Talking about money, FIFA is projected to make roughly $8.9 billion from this World Cup alone. Across the 4-year cycle, that number climbs to $13 billion. Broadcasting rights for this tournament are expected to surpass $4.2 billion, the highest in history of the sport. A seat at the final match at MetLife Stadium on July 19th was listed at $32,970 per seat earlier this month. And it's probably even more now. And $32,000 is more than triple the average Super Bowl resale price. And that is still too expensive. On top of it, FIFA doesn't care if Mexico is perceived as a dangerous place. In fact, this fear narrative works to their advantage. The more dangerous the setting sounds, the more justified the $800 million plus for security operations becomes. And then this makes FIFA sponsors feel more secure and comfortable, leading to bigger broadcast and partnership deals for them, which ends up meaning more profit. But here's how FIFA actually operates. On December 5th, 2025, at the World Cup draw ceremony in Washington, D.C., something really weird happened. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum and Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney were were sitting in the audience, while FIFA's president stood up and presented an award to Donald Trump, and it was really odd and something that FIFA has never given out before. They called it the FIFA Peace Prize. And by the way, this was the same old Donald Trump who had threatened to bomb Mexico to stop the cartels, impose massive tariffs on Mexican goods, and has been calling Mexico a failed state for years. He received this award at a ceremony co-hosted by Mexico, with the Mexican president in the room. Kind of seems like a slap in the face, but you couldn't write it any better. After the ceremony, a human rights organization even filed an ethics complaint afterwards, but FIFA didn't seem to care whatsoever. So when you ask who profits from all this so-called danger in Mexico during the World Cup, FIFA is definitely at the top of that list. They don't create or spread the narrative, they just collect revenue no matter what happens. While Mexico handles the hosting and pays for security, bearing the label of a dangerous place, FIFA sells insane overpriced tickets to the matches and gets to walk away with a huge profit, maybe more than anyone else. For years, American news networks have been running this campaign that works really well. I like calling it scary Mexico content. It's a simple way to explain it, really. They are so good at presenting Mexico in a way to scare normal people, these normal, everyday people. They use scary words and scary images that, in my experience, don't represent the majority of Mexico. They show cartels fighting with each other, they talk about kidnappings, and they love to report on extreme travel warnings. And it works because people keep watching. And they keep watching it because it makes them nervous and on edge. And you know what's funny? Even during the World Cup, they haven't stopped. They just repackage it. CNN ran this story right before the tournament started. The headline was, "How dangerous is watching the World Cup in Mexico really?" Think about that headline for a second. The entire article is about crime, cartels, disappearances, security risks, whether you're going to get robbed or kidnapped in Mexico. There's nothing about culture, nothing about the amazing Mexican people, and nothing about the actual experience of being in one of the most incredible countries on earth during the World Cup. It's still the same old scary Mexico content. They just put a question mark at the end of it. And that question mark is genius from a business perspective. How dangerous is it really? That title makes two completely different people click. The person who's scared of Mexico clicks because they want to know if they should be scared. And the person who knows Mexico's great clicks because they think the answer will prove them right. So yeah, both people click. Both people see the ads, and both people give a small piece of revenue to the media company. And the sad part is that it wasn't about them really informing you ever. It was always about getting you to click and keeping you there with fear so they can show you ads to make money. Then there's Fox. Don't think that Fox News and Fox Sports are separate companies because they're owned by the same Fox Corporation. One of the two of them spent years producing scary content about Mexico, just like CNN. And Fox Sports, on the other hand, paid $485 million for the rights to broadcast World Cup games from inside Mexico. A 30-second ad slot from these games run between $200,000 and $750,000 US. And Mexico's opening match was the most watched World Cup group stage game in Fox English language history that didn't involve the US men's team. Now, that was a full mouthful, that was a lot to say, but rewind that and watch that again, just listen to that again because it's actually important to my point. What I'm saying is that there's a double dipping going on here. One side of the company makes a lot of money, scaring you about Mexico. And the other side is making a ton of money, showing you some of Mexico's biggest moments. It's almost like that should be illegal. All you have to do is look back in history to see the pattern. Over hundreds of years, Mexico has been the place where powerful nations and their corporations come to take advantage and strip the land of its resources and wealth. And right now, during the biggest sporting event in history of the world, It's happening again. It's just cleaner and more put together. And because of that, it's harder to spot. And it's getting harder to spot as time goes on. It doesn't end with the hotels, the security firms, the tech companies, FIFA, and the media networks. Eventually, the next person will come up with a more sophisticated version of those custom money boxes. And just like in the past, the Mexican people will most likely end up covering the cost of it all. It won't be the greedy companies or the crooked executives or even the shareholders. No, because those people will all be fine. And this shouldn't be okay. I made a video called In Defense of Mexico. It's a quick history lesson for anyone who wants to understand what Mexico is really about, what these scary headlines do to people and do to Mexico. So click it and I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.